start with a very short story. In England, I don't know if you have it here, Olim Chadashim, we have something called seed, which is they pair two people, somebody who's from the community, the Hamisha community, and somebody who doesn't really know very much, but they would like to start to learn, and they make them as a shidduch. So my wife had a shidduch with a very nice lady called Maureen, and Maureen said, look, I don't mind learning, but I don't want to be told halachas or anything which is machayev me, which means that demands on me to keep halachas. That I don't want to know. So my wife said, okay. And we learned a few months together, and after a while, it became close to Rosh Hashana time. So my wife said to Maureen, look, I don't mind. We've learned quite a few things. Fine, very nice, but it's coming Yom Noraim, Rosh Hashana. I mean, surely we need to know a little bit about halacha here, halacha there. So Maureen says she knows everything. So my wife said, what do you mean everything? Oh, she said, I know all about the apple and honey. Okay, and that seems to be the end of all the adira required for Rosh Hashana. So then my wife said to her, do you know everything you understand everything in the machsa? So Maureen said, what's a machsa? So it's very interesting because this is not unusual. She knew about the apple and the honey. She hadn't even heard of a machsa. So for some strange reason, everybody knows about the apple and the honey, even somebody who doesn't even know what a machsa is, and yet they know about the apple and the honey. Why? Why should it be that that's the symbol of, besides the shofar, of course, well, that is clear psukim we know about, and you always hear it, but the apple and the honey, and that you see in shul, but the apple and the honey, why should that be important? So that's basically the question. And things that when Kal Yisrael are nohig something, when they have a minhag already, which goes through for hundreds and thousands of years, it's not b'mikra. So this minhag that we have apple and honey is brought in Shulchan Aruch, Taf Kuf Pei Dalid, and the starting point of that halacha is that it's a good thing, Simon and Milsa, it's a good thing to have fruits, especially particularly fruits where there's a remez in either the name or the nature of the fruit, which is indicates it's a siman of a good thing. So, for example, we say a little nusach with it. It's brought in all the machzorim, all the sidurim as well. The Agodas, it says there, for example, have a rimon. Rimon has, I don't know whether it's actually 613, but it has a lot of seeds. And when we make the bar, we put 8 on the rimon. So we say hirotzon shenar bezchuyo seinu karimon. Or if we have fish, shenifra narbe v'nifra, we should have Bezrat Hashem, large families, all like the fish have many offspring. So that's fine, and it's all. The Ramah there brings that whatever fruits you have, fine, and you can be a little bit creative with your introducing maybe a new fruit that people haven't thought about it so much. That's fine. But the Ramah says that the minhag really is the tapuach, the apple. And the difficulty to understand this is that there's nothing about the apple which is sweet. Yeah, in some things are let's say tamarim, dates, which are very sweet. So we should have a shana tova masuka, like tamarim. But the apple is not sweet. It's not sour, but it depends. It's not particularly sweet. But why is it sweet? Because we dip the honey in the dvash. So we dip the apple in the dvash, and that's why it's sweet. Or you could dip anything in dvash, and it'll be sweet. But why is it that the minhag now for such a long time is the minhag b'Yisrael to have an apple and honey, and that everybody knows about, even the people who don't know what a machzor is? Okay, so this is what I want to deal with, and I want to ask a number of questions. Each one of the questions seems to indicate something strange, but I hope, Be'ez Hashem, when we get to understand a little bit what's going on, we'll understand why this strange thing is not really difficult to understand. Okay, so let's start asking some questions. In the Beis Hamikdash, there was a mizbeach hachitzon, the outer mizbeach, which all the kabbonos of Klal Yisrael were brought, and in all kabbonos of behemoths anyway, there was the various stages of bringing the korban. You had the shechita, and the kabbalah, and the halacha, and the zrika. Fine. Afterwards, when you finish that, not the ikka korban, but after that, when you finish, there's a hektek halovim ve'ivorim, which applies to virtually all kabbonos of behemoths. Now, the burning of the parts which are now meant for the mizbeach, it's called lachmo shel mizbeach, the food of the mizbeach, so to speak. Where's it burnt? It's burnt on the top of the mizbeach, all the chalovim and devorim which need to be burnt, virtually all kabbonos, and of course, especially over Yom Tovim and so on, when there are tens of thousands of kabbonos to be brought. So what happens when you burn something? It turns eventually to ash. Now, with so many kabbonos, eventually there was a huge pile of ash on the Rosh Hashana mizbeach, on the top of the mizbeach. Fine. Now, and that required periodically to remove the ash. Some we do trumas hadeshin, which is just a mitzvah in itself. You take a smaller a shovelful or a handful of ash, but then to maintain the order and the seder of the kabbonos, so we needed then to take this ash. It's nasa mitzvah, so it's not needed anymore. The mitzvah's been done, and we remove it with hotzoros hadeshin. With the ash is removed and is put somewhere, and keep the top of the mizbeach cleans for new kabbonos coming in. Now, what is this big pile, huge pile of ash called? It's called tapuach. It's a tapuach b'rosh mizbeach. Now that's very strange, because what do you indicate? You're indicating that there's a lot of ash, and it's probably in a bit of a round. Turns out to be a little bit round. So an apple's round. So we call this big pile of ash on the Rosh Hashana mizbeach, on the top of the mizbeach, we call it tapuach. Well, oranges are round. Many things. Eggs are pretty round. I mean, why are you calling it dafka a tapuach, an apple? It seems very, very strange. All right. So that's a question which. So the first question is, how come everybody knows about the apple and the honey, the tapuach, but they don't know, even if they know nothing else? Why is it that our minhag b'Yisrael is, certainly Ramah says, and it seems to be generally, that we have an apple for Simon and Milsa with the honey, and that is Sheyeh Lo Neshona Tova Masuka. And on Rosh Hashana mizbeach, which is a very, very kodesh dika place, the ashes are called tapuach, apple. That needs a bit of explanation. Another question. Yaakov Avinu was told by Rivka, his mother, that your father Yitzchak is going to give the brachas to Esav. He's told Esav to go and hunt, and when he brings back certain foods which Yitzchak loves very much, he likes very much, and then he's going to give him the brachas in the same way as Avraham gave to Yitzchak the brachas. Yitzchak is now going to give the brachas to Esav. Now, obviously, Rivka was concerned because Esav, we all know, Esav was a big Rosha, he was a Noef, a Rotzech, etc., etc., and it wasn't really, she really was not happy that Yitzchak should give these brachas, and the Ovos had tremendous ruchnius koiches, and that should be given surely to Yaakov, who was a Bechir Sheva Ovos, maybe the greatest of the Ovos, and he should be left out, and Esav should get the brachas. She wasn't happy, so she prepared the sort of meat that Madonim, which she knew Yitzchak loved and liked, and she told him to get it prepared and bring it into Yitzchak to get the brachas before Esav would come back from his hunting. So Yitzchak was a little bit perplexed, a little bit surprised that so quickly the hunting had finished. He thought that it was Esav still. Esav had gone, and so he thought that Esav had finished his hunting, had brought the meat in now, it's been cooked and everything else, and so Yitzchak was a bit, because he was blind, he couldn't see, he was a bit confused. How was it? How did you do everything so quickly? So, and then as he's speaking Yaakov, Yitzchak was also a bit confused, because on Mitzad Echad, from one point of view, he went and put his arm around the arm of Yaakov, and it felt hairy like Esav, not smooth like Yaakov would be, and also the voice was the voice of Yaakov and not the voice of Esav. And he said, I don't know whether Yitzchak, that is, said, I'm not really clear that this is the Kol Yaakov, yes, which that isn't who I should give the brachas to, but Yudayim, Yitzchak felt Yaakov's hands, his arms, and that was Yudayim Yudai Esav. So he said, come nearer, and he's going to decide what to do. Now, what he said was, when he came nearer, he said, Reach b'ni k'reach hasoda. The smell, the odor of my son Yaakov, he thought it was Esav, is k'reach hasoda, is like the odor of a field. Now, what is that? So Rashi brings two pshatim. One is the field was Gan Eden, the Gan, yes, garden, Gan Eden. Well, that's very understandable, because Yaakov, of course, the Bechir Sheva Avos, who's the Must Yokno, his vision is one of the four things which Kaviochel supports the Kisei HaKavod, is the nearest thing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, Yaakov was such an enormous tzaddik, so the Reach, this is something very wonderful, that the Reach B'ni is Kereach Soda, which is Gan Eden. But he gives another pshat as well, and he says that it's the Reach B'ni is Kereach Soda. Rashi brings Chakal Tapuchim, like an orchard of apples, yeah, or a plantation of apples. Now, why should Yitzchak use such a strange term? It's like an apple field. It needs some explanation. It really is. When you read the Rashi the first time, what is he talking about? Apples? Apples? How's it relevant here? Okay, let's. So we've got a number of. I'll just ask another another question. If you look in the Gemara in Psachim, Daf Kuf Tes Zayin, it discusses charoses, which is the sweet minhag that we have to eat on the Leil Seder, and that ingredient is brought together with the morah to various remozim for that, but that is we eat together with the morah, charoses. Now, what's charoses? One of the main ingredients. There can be different ingredients, but one of the main ingredients is apple. Apple, yeah. So the Gemara and Rashi explains a little bit more. Why is charoses apple? Yeah, that's the fruit that is. Sometimes there's other things as well, but basically it's apple, crushed apple. It's the explanation of why the answer to the Gemara's answer, and Rashi, as I say, explains a bit more, that it's why should the apple be the main ingredient in charoses, which we have together with our morah, and it says because it was very, very difficult. The Egyptians were tried to kill lo aleinu, all the Jewish babies, and how could the babies survive? So they kept an eye on any pregnant women, and as soon as the baby was born, chas v'sholom, 1,000,000 times, what would happen is they would kill the baby. So how did the Jewish mothers protect the babies? That they went out to the fields or something, or to the forest a little bit, and they gave birth not at home when the Egyptians would be keeping an eye on them, but on in the fields there, and nobody would see them, and they could give birth securely. So and then the Gemara explains that it's tachas hatapuach or atich. That what happened is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu arranged for them. They found themselves under the apple tree, and that's where they were hiding from the Egyptians while they're giving birth. And because of that apple tree on which they were giving birth, they gave birth. That's why we have apples in charoses. I mean, why? What difference does it make what tree they were under when they're giving birth? The whole structure, fine. They're not at home. They're out in the forest or something like that. I understand, and they're under a tree. Very good. What difference does it make if it's an apple tree or any tree? That's l'chara not important, and yet that is the Gemara is saying that is the reason why we have kuf tesayin in Psachim and Arab Psachim. Why should that determine that we should have charoses on Pesach? Because it happened to be an apple tree. It's not l'chara; it's of no significance, but yet that is what determines the main ingredient that we have in the charoses. Okay, now I think those are the questions. We'll repeat them in a second anyway. But there is a one answer, one point, which in fact l'chara answers everything, and also gives us some insight in some of the things, some of our nusach for tefillah and so on. The Malbim on Shiurim on this pasuk of Tachas HaTapuach Aratich, the Malbim says as follows on this pasuk: Tachas HaTapuach Aratich is under the apple tree. I stirred you up, i.e., I was brought about your birth, or protected you while you were giving birth. His ori, there was a big ruchnius shchina from the shchina. I stirred you up. I really looked after you, and that is the posuk on which the charoses and the apple is based. The Malbim says this is Perek Ches. Posuk Hey, The Malbim says as follows. I'll read it out if I may. What's tachas hatapuach araticha? Zehu yansh. Why are we talking about this apple tree? He says yansh hanefesh hayakora hazos. The Jewish neshama, this dear Jewish neshama, he atzula mimarom. It comes out kaviochel from the Shechina, umimokom kodosh tisalech, and from this kedusha of the Shechina, it comes into our world. Ki be'eis aratich arati oshach mimkom b'chol aredis al gevia. HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking at the time when it was decided that your neshama would come now into your body, i.e., you be born. Hoyisi tachas hatapuach b'chakal tapuchim kadishin. You are in this place of chakal tapuach, in this field of apples. B'hatzilus ha'elyon ba'olam. This is the highest of all the alomas and so on. Sheshom makor hanashomos. That was the source. That is the source of all hanashomos. Yes, and he just carries on the Malbim. Ba'es sheneksheres bechevle leido. When the mother is about to give birth, then it comes into the gevia. Shoma tachas hatapuach elyon, and this is then born when it comes to the tapuach elyon. What does it mean like this? We say that how's a member of Klal Yisrael born? He's born because the source of his neshama is the closest thing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yes, because we say in the morning davening, Elokai neshama. Hashem, neshama shenosat to be, which you've given me, you ato nofach be, ato mashamra bekir be, v'ato osid litlo mimeni lasid levo. I.e., that the neshama which nofach to be. What is the word? Yes, the word comes out from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the neshama shenofach to be, which you have taken, that you have breathed into me, and therefore the neshama comes into the guf, and the child is born. And as the Gemara says, man denofik midalei konofik. When somebody breathes out, you are breathing out your own breath from inside you. And kaviyochol, this is when the Rebbeinu Shalom brings our neshamas, he is nofach dobi. It comes from this place which is called tapuach. That is the source. That's the nearest thing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It comes kaviochel from the breath of the Rebbeinu Shalom, from the word tapuach, from nofuach, breathed out. That it's the nearest thing to you is your own breath. When your own breath comes out, that's been part of you. That's the tapuach is a part kaviochel of the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that is the makor of all our neshamas. So it has two meanings, tapuach. It has the meaning of an apple, okay, and I've got actually even an apple here, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I think you knew even before I said anything. And it's also a place of the mamish, the closest place that you could be to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He breathed out kaviochel into a place called the breath kaviochel of the Rebbeinu Shalom is housed in the tapuach elyon, the closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the makor of our neshamas. That's the source of all our neshamas. Now, if we have that, then everything l'chora we can answer all the questions with a few additions. First of all, let's go back to some of the questions. Why do we have charosis, which contains apple? Because the Benos Yisrael gave birth under an apple tree. Well, that's right. I mean, like, why? Okay, it's very nice, but why should there be any significance? Because it's much deeper than that. For a child, you can tell them it's under an apple tree, and it was under an apple tree. But the depth is that when they gave birth in Mitzrayim, they were under, from the Tapuach Elyon, they were very, very close to the Shechina. You couldn't get it. There's nowhere in the world which is closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom B'chvodo v'atzmo than this Tapuach, this Mokum of all on the Shomas, as the Malbim explains. And therefore, they were protected because they were mamish connected to the Shechina, the nearest thing to the Shechina, Kaviyachol. That's why the children survived, and that's why, of course, there were all these the neshamas of Klal Yisrael grew in Mitzrayim, despite the fact that the Mitzrim were trying to kill them all. And therefore, it's under that Tapuach is apple tree fine. We do have apple because we don't have this great high mokum of Shechina, the actual Tapuach Elyon, but this is the nearest that we can get, and it's a remiss to that. Why, with this now, having explained that this Tapuach is the mokum from which all on the Shomas come, which is the mokum in the world which is the closest to the Rebbeinu Shalom, let's start going through some of the questions, and I think the answers become very, very clear. With this, it's the same answer which answers all the questions. One of the questions we asked was, why should the top of the Mizbeach, where all the ash collects in a heap, why should that be called Tapuach? And the answer now we understand. Because there were two places in the Beis HaMikdash which were the closest to the Rebbeinu Shalom. One was the Kodesh Kedoshim, which we know very well. That was the entrance to Gan Eden, and that was, of course, so Kodesh and so close to Kodesh Baruch Hu, only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur could go there. That I think we all know. But the top of the Mizbeach, what's so important about that? And that's called the Tapuach as well, that heap of ashes. And the answer is that this is the other place which is also nearest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Kodesh Kedoshim. On top of the Mizbeach, they burnt the Kabbonos. Where did the fire come from? So, well, Klal Yisrael, the Kohanim, organized the world. There were logs and wood to burn and so on, yes, coals. But the Gemara says that there was in the Gemara in Daf Kaf Aleph on the days in Yuma, it was an Eish Yoredis Min Hashemayim. It was Eish which came down directly Kaviyachol from the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that came down. And even though, of course, that fire would easily burn up all Kabbonos, as the Gemara says, Afal Pisha Eish Yoredis Min Hashemayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down an Eish from Shemayim. We still have to do our part to contribute mitzvah lahovi min ha'hedget. We also have to bring some wood. But that Rosh Hashana, like the Kodesh Kedoshim, is the nearest place to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Raya Ladova is that you're coming into direct contact on the Rosh Hashana with the Rebbeinu Shalom, who's burning the Karbonos that needed burning. So to call that Tapuach makes sense. Because what do we see? We see from what we explained before that Tapuach is the nearest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our world, yes, in the universe. So where do you see that? You see that our Rosh Hashana, where a direct fire is coming mamash from the Rebbeinu Shalom. There's nothing in the physical world from this, directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you call Tapuach, just like the word Tapuach is where the neshamas of Klal Yisrael come from and are stored there. The closest thing Kadosh Baruch Hu, Rosh Hashana is the place where there's an Eish directly from the Rebbeinu Shalom coming into our world, and therefore it's called Tapuach. That's the correct phrase to use for anywhere which is in direct contact, the closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When Yaakov, Esau is confused, he's not sure which son this is, and he says Reach Benik, Reach Hasoda, and Rashi brings there the Midrash that it's Chakal Tapuchim, like a field of apples. And we said, what's apples doing there? No, because there were two pshotim brought that what Yitzchok felt. He felt mitzad echad, as Rashi quoted there, Gan Eden. Well, that's understandable. I think we've explained that. We can understand that he's the Bechir Shivavos. He's the Must Yukno is in the Kisya Kovo, directly next to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. But he also had a field of apples. What it means is it's the Tapuach again. He said, hold on, I'm feeling a Reach B'ni, Kureach, the Tapuach, which is the closest thing to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. What a son I've got here. On the other hand, of course, in the physical world, he's feeling the rough skin, the hairy skin of Esau, and that's why he was a bit confused. But once he said that, no, the Reich B'ni Kameich Hasoda, this is such great Kedusha, him I've got to give the bracha to. Okay. Remember, I know I said it, but just again, Vayipach ba'apah ruach chaim, man is created from the neshama coming into the physical goof. That's the Malbim explains, and that is then you've got the Odom. Okay, that's why maybe the minhag that we have apple is because on what happened in Mitzrayim was Ovarti be'eretz Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodu va'atzmo came and passed over Mitzrayim, ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo sraf, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodu va'atzmo. How did he kill the Mitzrayim? The Shechina itself passed through, and we can't really understand how this works, of course, but usually just translating the psukim, the Shechina passed through ani v'lo malach, etc., passed through Mitzrayim, and the Mitzrayim came into contact with that, and it was overwhelmed them and it killed them. That happens on Pesach night, and that's why it's a night which is so kodesh, because every year there is again the Shechina is manifest. Okay, and that's why we have the apple, because that is also because when you're in touch with the Shechina, as they were in Mitzrayim at that time, you're the nearest thing possible to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And therefore apples, because that is the place which is the nearest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Man de nofek midalei kon ofek, that comes directly from the breath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from inside HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kaviyachol. And therefore, when we have the apple, it's because that is in a way yesod of Pesach night. And it says that if a person is zocha, the shechin is so great on that night that Eliyahu Novi comes, you have a person can be tremendously elevated, getting close kaviyachol to the Shekhinah. I think we've answered our questions, and that's, as I said, the Moses. That's what we definitely have apples on Pesach night in the Charosis. There one or two other things which I hadn't asked, but now fit in very nicely. Where some of the nusach, I think it's normally nusach Sfard, has on Friday night, it's based on the Zohar mentions that chakal tapuchim, this field of apples, the orchard of apples, is mentioned dafka on Friday night. Many times mentioned in the Zohar, and it's nusach of many tefillas. Why are we talking about apple orchards on Friday night? Well, how is that relevant? The answer is that what happens on Shabbos, we have a neshama yesera, i.e. a neshama, an additional neshama. Obviously, we can't really understand what that means, but not just our normal neshama, which comes directly from the tapuach. There's an additional one, i.e. there's more of that happening on Shabbos night, and therefore it's very appropriate to use the lashon of chakal tapuchim to refer to the apple, because from that is the source of our basic existence, our basic neshamas in our guf. And on Friday night on Shabbos, the kedusha is from exactly the same thing, but more than the normal. It's neshama yisera. Where's that neshama coming from? It's coming from the tapuach. Hence the Zohar and many of the tefillahs use the lashon of chakal tapuchim, the tapuach, because that is in a way the most important part of Shabbos, neshama yisera. What about on why is it the Ramah says on Rosh Hashana, we should, and this has become the minhag b'Yisrael, that you should have the fruit that you're having should be, you can have all various fruits, very nice ideas, sweet fruits, fruits which show bracha, but why should we have the apple here, the tapuach? Because what did we say on Nusach Tefillah? Remember, the man was created, the Rosh Hashana is the 6th day of the Bria. That's the day when man is created. Yes? What do we say on Nusach? Hayom haras olam. Haras is the world was born, i.e., the neshama of Kol Yisrael comes on Friday night. That's when man is created. Man is created, i.e., the neshama comes from the tapuach into Odom, and then we have Odom. That's the Bria Odom on the sixth day. Hayom haras olam, and that is the birth. Our birth. The world is born, so to speak. Odom is born. I.e., how is he born? The neshama is come from the tapuach, and therefore we have the minhag of the tapuach on Friday, on Rosh Hashana night. I think also this explains something else. There's just a general point, and we'll just finish off with this. The Gemara says that sometimes a person feels nervous or happy or something for is no reason, and the Gemara says, you know where this comes from? Why am I suddenly a bit nervous, very happy? He says because the Gemara's lashon is ihu lo chose mazole chose. He doesn't see, but his neshama, which is connected to him in Shemayim, things are happening there, and that either something which could be a threat to him, which is dangerous, or something which is a particularly big schus coming near to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He didn't see it, but the Rebbeinu Shalom, but his neshama sees it, and that's why we know somehow it's developed the minhag b'Yisrael. There should always be an apple with the honey, because keep things sweet. But the apple, why dafka? Because that is the tapuch. That's the source of all neshamas, and that is when it happened before after the creation, but during Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Shechina, we came directly into contact with the Shechina, and as Rav Dessler explains, that every year we're going around the same cycle. Yeah, on Aseres Mei Teshuva is a place very good time for Teshuva, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yeshua Hashem Be'im Tzoro. On Tisha B'Av we have to be careful; it's a span of danger. The Chorban took place then, and there is a danger every year. That is the mahus of the 9 days, Tisha particularly, and also this is the time where the Shechina was. There's the biggest Gilui Shechina, and that's how Yetzias Mitzrayim came, and that is why we all feel the need. Although the Kal Yisrael have got this minhag, you've got to have the apple with its honey. Why tapuach? Why the apple? I think we've explained. Because you do have an experience of avarti beretz Mitzrayim on Nivel Omar. The Shechina is coming on every year, depending on your madrega. But if you have the right madrega, you really can feel and experience the Shechina coming from this tapuach, which you are now experiencing. I know, just by the way, Rebbetzin Kanevsky, Reb Chaim's Rebbetzin, Aleim HaSholem, said that her husband, the Sarah Torah of Klal Yisrael, had a Gilui Eliyahu on the Seder night, which is understandable, because the Tefuach, that is the place where the Shechina is coming from this Tapuach, and therefore somebody of a great madrega could feel even more elevated than normal, and therefore he had Gilui Eliyahu. I'll just finish with this point. I hope we've answered partially the various questions we asked, because otherwise it does seem very strange. I know they say in English, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Apples are very healthy, but they're not miraculous. and they seem to appear in Yaakov Avinu, Reich B'nikim Kerech Hasoda, where all the questions we asked. Now, a basic of Kabbalah, or a basic of Hashkafa, is that there's an olam, there are various olamas until you come actually to the Kisei HaKovod itself, and each one is a derivative. It's something which comes from the higher levels. So you get the highest level, and then the shomas come down various Yechidah, Atzilus, various levels, but they're all the same thing except within their framework. So in the very high spiritual parts, which are very close to Kodesh Baruch Hu, it's something, but then as it comes down to all the various worlds, they have the same principle, but within that world. Now, in our world, we have apples. In the Kisei HaKovod, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, the closest thing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called apple. Okay, we also have apples. Now, it's inevitable, it has to be really, that the apple itself, sof kol sof, it's nothing's just a coincidence, that the apple is the name of this greatest part of the Bria, which is the closest to the neshama, to the kedusha of the Ribono Shel Olam. It's man de nofik midelei nofik, and therefore it must be there's something in the apple which really is the reason why the apple is chosen. Why the Kodesh Baruch Hu calls this mokum of his shechina the nearest thing to him. He breathed out from himself. Kaviochel, it's called tapuach. There's a reason. Now, if you take an apple, there must be something in the apple which is shchinadik. Now, if you take an apple and you cut it in half, okay, I don't know if anybody can actually see this, but you can do this at home as well. Take an apple and cut it in half. And what have you got? The most inner part is there are little pockets, yes, which there are seeds. There are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 pockets which contains the seeds of the apple tree. Then if you look on the outside, you'll see just around there are dots. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 dots. I don't know if anybody knows why those dots are there, but anyway, every apple, this was a random apple, as you saw, I picked it up. So what have you got? You've got 5 pockets for the seeds, and then you've got 10 little dots, also in a circle, around the pockets of the seeds. Now, if you stop a second and think, hold on, the 5 is, what's in Lashon HaKodesh, what letter represents is 5? The Hey. What about the Yud? Yeah, the 10. It's the Yud. So what have you got in the core of the apple? You've got Yud Hey. Yeah. Ki bakor Hashem tzor olamim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from Yud Hey, the name of Hashem. That is the core of the apple. So I just want to finish, just say that in fact when we use the lashon in English, we say there's the core of the apple. It means the real fundamental, the basic essence of the apple is its core. Yes, with the seeds, which will create more apples and so on. So the core of the universe also is the apple. The apple has its core, the universe has its core, and the core of the universe is the tapuach from which on the shomas come in, and so on. So I hope it's we this minhag developed of all the years of having it, and that's why this lady who learned from my wife Maureen didn't know what a machzor was, but she knew about apple and honey. You know why? Because Hanashoma knew that's the essence of Rosh Hashana, Yom HaRasalom, and so on. So thank you very much for the opportunity of giving this shir, and please, I sometimes listen to Kol Hashon. It's a wonderful Habotzos Torah in large numbers, Gevaldig Schus, and I wish you Birchas Hedget. You should all go Mechael El Chayil. Amen.